The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
Hey, welcome to The Winemakers, everyone. It's just Bart and I today, hanging out. John's, I think, back east. Sam is doing the Passover thing with fam, drinking kosher wines. I saw he posted he just sent it to us yesterday. We did a kosher rosé in like 18 and 19. I think Sam was tired of drinking Manischewitz at family gatherings, and so we did it at Mayacamas. And I don't know, what did you have to do, like a organic
you have to have
yeast, or it's a kosher yeast strain or something?
Well, no, you would just probably do natural yeast.
I don't know.
But the whole thing is you have to have a rabbi there to bless the equipment.
Right.
Yeah. And I love to tell this story, and I might get in trouble, but my friend worked at a winery that did kosher wine. This is probably back in the early 80s. And he said that they had the kosherizer, which was a hotsy, like a pressure washer, hot pressure washer. And they would spray everything down with the hotsy, and then it would be, and then the rabbi would come in and he would bless it, and it would be kosher. And then
supposedly, because I remember when I was at the Girl in the Fig, we did some event at Sweet D, and we had to have kosher wine. So someone came in and took care of the kitchen part, but then I had to source kosher wines, and I was using Hagafen. And they were explaining to me that a rabbi has to be present from the moment they pierce the skin of the grape, is what they told me, which always sounded kind of weird.
I think to the point is, I think that what you're talking about is the way how you would truly do it. And then if you were doing it at some custom crush place, is probably what you would get on the other side.
Yeah. I heard as long as the check clears.
I went to college with an Israeli guy for winemaking, and he worked in wineries in Golan Heights. And like, unless you were of the faith, you could not touch the wine there.
Right.
Huh. That's Bruce Devlin, everyone. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks.
We from Ballentine, and then we figured out this morning that I was pouring your 3 Clicks wines at the Girl in the Fig, the Grenache Blanc with the really cool label. It's got like the yellow. Do you have a bottle of it here somewhere?
There it is.
Bring the memory
back.
Yeah.
It's really trippy. It almost looks like Saturn rings or Jupiter or something. Yeah. And you were saying you think they still have that on the list?
They ordered some not that long ago. I'm assuming it's still on there, but
yeah, it's a new wine buyer, Joel, who used to be at EDK, is I think handling the wines now. Yeah. But he knows good wine. Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, Bruce. What did you pop for us?
I opened our Malvasia Bianca sparkling wine.
Ooh.
So Ballentine's all estate grown. Everything we produce, we grow ourselves. It's an old farming family that's on its 4th and 5th generation. First piece of land was bought in 1905, and the last piece in 1949.
Wow.
I mean, you have to think about that. And has it always been grapes since that time?
I've got a vineyard map in my office that has the original 1905 ranch, and it was from the 80s, and it has the layout of the property, and it was kind of that transition time when things went from kind of old head train vineyard to newer California sprawl, and the original 1915 plantings are still on there, and it was pretty much all grapes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
I mean, it's the reason why I stopped you is because in Europe, that's no big deal.
Right.
But here, it is a big deal. I mean, just to keep family businesses going together that many generations,
when you're talking about pre-prohibition too.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So anyway, go right ahead. And where is the vineyard located specifically?
So the winery's in St. Helena on Highway 29, just about a mile north of town. And we have 3 properties. 2 are owned by the Ballentine family, and 1 was owned by the Pokai family. and those two families married at third generation, what we consider third generation now. The two Ballentine properties are in St. Helena on the north end, and the Pokai Vineyard is on the south edge of the Calistoga appellation.
How do you spell Pokai?
Pocai.
Pocai. Okay.
Italian heritage from Lucca, Italy area.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So northern Napa Valley, and definitely a warm.
Yeah, we're hot.
You're hot.
Our biggest thing with farming is paying attention to temperature. We're using a lot of shade cloth, a lot of canopy, no real big fruit exposure or anything. We're more worried about temperature and shading.
Can you talk about the shade cloth? And I mean, it's something that we've been talking about a little bit over the past few years, but the fact that just your statement, I'd love for you to talk about, like, how did it get implemented and how much extra work is it and how well does it work?
So we have two varieties that are really heat sensitive. One is Chenin and one is Petite Syrah. And like it gets over 110, which it often does in a given year, or 105, and they will burn. And so we were looking for ways to help protect that. And we saw, I don't remember what year it was, we saw a pretty hot year where it was like a July heat. It was before you would expect it to burn fruit.
Yeah.
But it went through and it fried about 25-30% of the Chenin crop. And the next year we implemented shade cloth.
Yeah.
And so just on that vineyard sits east-west. So the fruit's exposed morning sun, afternoon sun. We just put shade cloth on the afternoon side, and the canopy kind of naturally shades the other side as the sun shifts over. Right. But we have not seen that kind of burn since we implemented shade cloth.
Cool.
I
And
know how expensive is that? I mean, how big is the vineyard that you're shading?
It's expensive. Yeah. I don't remember the exact cost, but we looked at the calculation of it, and it wasn't cheap. And then you can add, I mean, just the shade cloth alone, and then you add the manual labor to put it up.
Because how do you have posts that you're actually cementing down into the dirt?
No, it's attached to the natural trellis. So it's just attached to the trellis and wires.
Okay.
And tied to that.
Yeah.
And then the first year we actually rolled it up and left it in the vineyard and went to put it back up, and it just kind of crumbled away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we actually roll it up and put it inside and then pull it back out. And I don't know how many years it'll exist at that, but we definitely will not leave it out again.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, working in wineries that were outside, we always had shade cloth, and it's remarkable how well it works. And you can order different gradients, you know. But then every time you have a windstorm,
that's what I was wondering.
Again,
what if it gets windy?
I haven't seen that, and we get pretty windy where we are.
Okay, that's
I don't know if they're
then it's a light enough shade cloth that the wind can pass through.
Yeah,
which, you know.
And we're all divided canopies, so there's a little spread to it, and it
Right.
just kind of rests against that canopy. It's not like out hanging.
Right. Sure.
So I think it's got some protection in that.
Yeah.
We've implemented a little bit more in things like Zinfandel, where we're seeing some raisoning issues and trying to prevent those. But like in the Bordeaux varieties that don't seem to be heat sensitive, we're still just trying to use canopy to mitigate heat events.
So go back to the properties and what you guys grow and how the Ballentines came to start the winery. Like, what year did the winery start?
Yeah, so I started with the Ballentines in 99, and at that time we had a lot of Zinfandel, Chenin Blanc, Merlot, Cab Franc. I think that Petite Syrah, a lot of Petite Syrah. You know, they were kind of old growers. They were growing a lot of Zin for white Zin programs,
right?
And kind of got planted in the 80s. And I kind of came in as that turn was going out. You know, Behringer, Sutter Home, they had all moved their white Zin programs to the Central Valley, and the Ballentines didn't have a winery at that point. They were just growers prior to that, and decided they needed to build a winery and start producing for themselves. They saw some of their neighbors' successes and really wanted to kind of put a foot in the game and get going. They had two wineries prior to that. So the Pokai family actually had a winery that operated pre-prohibition. Who knows if it operated during Prohibition or not? We don't really know, although I did see a barrel hidden away somewhere that had last racked, I think it was 1932 or something.
Holy shit.
It was just tucked under a house, buried away.
Awesome.
So there was some home wine at least going on.
Sure. There was more than that, trust me.
Yeah, I know. But
we can talk freely about it now. No one listens to this show anyway.
But Betty Ballentine, the matriarch who I first started working for, third generation, her grandparents had the Pokai property. They bought it in 1905 with, I don't know, $10 in gold coins. Right next to Three Palms Vineyard. And she had stories. It was originally all just farmed with horses and plows, and we have a picture of her grandfather and her father and his brother on a carriage at the winery with grapes and lug boxes. And so I got to talk to Betty about some of those stories, and she remembers as a kid going out to that barn, waiting for the grapes to come in so her and her dad could ride on their Model T and take the grapes out to the train to be shipped out.
Oh, okay.
Shipped out to where?
Well, that was during Prohibition. They would, or Depression or whatever. They would get shipped back east, or
yeah. That's why there was actually more wine made during Prohibition than after Prohibition for a number of years, because there was so much shipped out as home winemaking. A lot of it was freeze dried and then packaged into boxes, and you could buy a box of freeze dried wine grapes, and it would say
it was like a brick.
It was like a brick, and there was some wording that said, you cannot add water and yeast to this.
Yeah,
it basically spelled out the instructions, but said, do not do this, this, and this.
Right.
Kind of like, this is not a flamethrower. Flamethrower.
Right. Yeah. So, well, this is a delightful sparkling wine.
Yeah, thanks.
I know. Do you make the sparkling on property?
So we make the base wine. We don't have the equipment to bottle sparkling wine, so we ship that base wine to a company called Brute Mobile Bottling.
Okay.
They bottle it, tirage it, and then we ship. It comes back to us. We age it on property.
Oh, cool.
And then ferments in bottle, and then we ship it back to them for disgorgement and labeling.
Wow, it's kind of labor intensive.
It is, but I don't know. My assistant winemaker had the idea of this project. We've kind of struggled with what we do with Malvasia over the years. I've made a dry version. I've made a Moscato d'Asti style, and none of them have really struck a chord. Yeah. Like, winemakers really loved the dry Malvasia, but the consumer didn't. It's just like hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
And the Moscato d'Asti style, which I called the hot tub wine, wasn't necessarily the consumer we wanted in the tasting room. It was attracting a different kind of person.
For sure.
So
more bachelorette parties.
Yeah, we were looking for something else to do with it, and she's like, let's make it sparkling. And I'm like, okay. And she brought up the idea, and I'm like, but we have to find a way to do it the traditional way.
Yeah.
Like, we have to do it the right way. That's kind of our philosophy, and we're not in this to take shortcuts, and we'll figure it out.
And so is that the first thing you pick every year?
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
That, and this is the first year we did a rosé, so that would be...
This is the first year you did a rosé, was 24?
Yeah.
Huh. Why? What was the reasoning for that? Well, I guess you didn't have a bunch of young vines on property. You didn't have...
we have everything to make. Like, we have all sorts of varieties and all sorts of things we could make rosé from, but we have far too many wines. And so my staff...
How many?
I don't know, like 16 different wines.
Yeah.
My staff has asked me to make a rosé for years, and I resisted and I brought on somebody for wholesale this year, which we were only DTC the last 10 to 12 years. A little bit of wholesale here and there, but really not focused on it. And he's like, we should make a rosé. And I'm like, oh, Fuck.
Another rosé.
So are you winemaker and general manager?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
So Frank Ballentine is fourth generation. He's the active owner at this point. His kids are involved a little bit, but his son's off working in viticulture in Southern California.
cool.
Got a degree from Fresno. His daughter's a biochemical engineer.
Yeah.
Super smart.
Yeah.
And Frank's wife works for Beckstoffer Vineyards. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
kinda all in the family.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then, so let's talk about the Chenin Blanc, because at least I'm a fan of the Chenin Blanc.
Yeah, before we even get into the Chenin Blanc, do you guys sell fruit to any other wineries, or do you make it all yourselves?
We do sell fruit. So our traditional system is we sell about 2/3 and keep about 1/3 for ourselves.
Okay. Do you have any Chenin Blanc available?
That's the one variety that I have like a waiting list for.
Okay. Is there any way to get Bart up at the top of the waiting list?
We can figure it out.
There we
I got to find a client who doesn't pay their bills.
There you go. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Brian, for doing that for me. So I
Are
did
you
make it
looking for
uncomfortable.
Chenin?
Always.
Well, and he made it from Buddha's Dharma vineyard up in Mendocino, and it was great, but that vineyard kind of went by the wayside. And now the cool kids have all kind of gotten into Chenin Blanc, and so it's this resurgence, and it's getting a little more challenging.
And it's really interesting, like how much, especially the last couple of weeks in the press.
So it's
just
total
been
hipster now.
well,
It's
that's the Hella
blown up.
Chenin event that's happening.
Well,
in a
but
few
also
weeks.
the
we just held a Chenin event too at the winery. I invited all the Napa producers.
yeah.
I think there's something like 14 and 11 showed up. And so we all got together, tasted through all the wines. There was a little bit of media there. And just kind of saw what everybody was doing with Chenin in Napa.
Yeah.
I got invited. My first year making Chenin was 2009. And in 2010, I got invited to a lunch in Napa. And I think I got it was from Tegan, but it was this group of like 10 or 12 producers. And it was like the foothills, it was Rourke. It was the foothills. It was Napa. It was Clarksburg.
Yeah.
It was the little bit of Sonoma. And it's just amazing. All those guys are still making it, but how many other people, and at the time you'd go out and sell Chenin and they'd go, ooh, is
I
it
don't
sweet?
like it sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, no. Or they'd say, well, why did you put dry on it on the front? Because I used to put dry on it.
Yeah.
And I said, because I was hoping that might make people reach for it more. So
I kind of refused to put that on.
I went away from it myself.
We started making Chenin in 2002. So when I started with the Ballentines, it was red wine only. They didn't make a white wine. And we had 8 acres of Chenin at that Calistoga vineyard, which is the hottest part of Napa County. And we were selling it to another winery for dirt cheap. And I told the owners, let's just take a little bit. Let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah.
Made a little bit the first year and doubled the next year. And then we like we did back in those days, we would make too much wine and then wind up discounting a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. Or we try not to.
If you were going to plant Chenin somewhere in California, even if it's already planted there, where would you plant it?
I think it's got to be warm, but not crazy. I think it's got to be dry because it's kind of soft skin.
It can't have a lot of mildew pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got to be in those like intermittent zones of hotter parts of
Right.
Sonoma
Or Napa,
and we grew it in Calistoga for years. I mean, it's in St. Helena now at the winery on a little bit heavier soil. But it grew in Calistoga. It did well. And I'm sure, at one point it was the largest planted white variety in Napa County.
Yeah, for sure.
It lost its way to Chardonnay.
Yeah, and Sauvignon Blanc, Campino, and Cab over time, and just sort of took over, which is a bummer.
But we're the largest grower in Napa currently. With
Chenin Blanc.
with 5.5 acres.
Wow.
It's amazing.
But what came out at the Chenin seminar we threw a month ago was the people who are doing it are all like they've got plans to do more now that it's kind of come up and become in vogue.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I saw some of the big brands are actually making some Shannon now. Like, I want to say I saw a KJ, one of the KJ brands, is doing a Shannon, and it was Clarksburg or Central Coast. I mean, it's
Well, Wade Cellars, Dwayne Wade is making a Shannon, and then Pine Ridge has always done theirs, but they blend it
put
with Viognier,
Yeah.
which is kind of a bummer.
Well, and there's Venum still out there, I think. Richard
yeah,
Bruno's
Venum's still there.
line.
We had them on the show in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's kind of cool to be able to put Napa on your Chenin Blanc.
absolutely.
I know.
And I mean, that was the fun thing about the Buddha's Dharma, is just that it was from somewhere other than Clarksburg. The first few years I made it from Clarksburg, and I always made really good wine, but it was
You get tossed in with the
well,
other-
it was somewhat one dimensional, and I didn't help that because I made it one dimensionally, so but I was pretty conservative winemaker then, so
yeah.
Crack the
Hell
shack.
yeah.
So how long have you guys been of the screw cap age?
So I started with screw caps for Ballentine in 2006, I think. So Shannon and Zen wanted to do a white and a red. The intention was that anything white would obviously be in screw cap, and then anything aromatic, really, essentially.
Smells great.
So it's fun now, like that Shannon tasting we just threw. It's my best experiment is to pull out those old vintages of Shannon. And Marianne Warbeck came to the winery from Spectator, and I pulled out the first two vintages of Screw Cap Shannon, the last two of Cork, and we tasted them side by side. And they were both still drinkable, but the Screw Cap Shannon was vibrant and fresh, and the Cork showed its age and was more golden.
Yeah.
So it definitely has an impact. And I think people have always thought that screw caps don't age, but that's purposefully why I chose screw caps, because they can age better. They hold their fruit better than a cork will. And I'll probably catch a lot of crap for that, but I don't care.
I know people are pretty dogmatic about stuff, and anyone that's listened to the show remembers when we opened up a bunch of wine for Hospice Tyrone down in Paso, and the guy next to me, I was opening up 5 cases of stuff under cork. He was opening up 5 cases of stuff under screw cap, and it was like an O2 Mourvèdre from Australia or something. And I'm pulling off bottles that are off or corked, and he's putting every bottle back in the box. And he was the Summit French Laundry at the time. And I said, would you guys ever put a screw cap wine on the list? And he said, hell no. And I said, but
They had the Grenache Blanc on.
seriously?
Yep.
Oh, you made it.
That gets a ding. Yeah, absolutely.
They did.
Yeah.
Just for a split second, but they did have it on.
Good for you. Yeah. So we saw that it was why not do it? It's just people that are used to a certain thing and don't want to get away from it. We're like that here at 16600. We're traditional cork, and that's what the owners want. And
The consumer still wants it. It's hard to get over that consumer fear of screw cap, or that consumer knowledge of thinking screw cap is for less expensive or less good wines.
right.
And I wish we could just throw all that tradition aside and just move forward and make choices based on what they're good for. But I don't know. I'll get blasted by all different sides because some people still think cork is better, and
Yeah.
it's personal
So
opinion.
Bruce, where do you come from? where did you grow up, and then how did you come into the wine business?
So I grew up in San Jose, no relation to wine industry. My dad was a aircraft mechanic for United. I remember them as kids. There was the old Palmason winery in Saratoga that
Yeah.
we would stop at every once in a while.
Yeah.
And always had some sort of impression. I can still remember how it looks. It was a long time ago. But I started making beer in high school before I could legally drink it.
Okay,
And just, I always had an interest. I became vegetarian at 18, and just like, I don't know, while all my friends were playing quarters with Coors Light, I was drinking Anchor Steam.
So wait a minute. So were your parents like was sitting down at dinner?
No, my parents were Franzia, bag in a box. They were
fried steak.
They were sangria parties on the front lawn with the neighbors.
So they drank but they weren't vegetarians.
No, they had a healthy relationship with alcohol and a healthy relationship with all foods. And
what did they say when you told them that you were becoming a vegetarian?
Oh, they hated it. But what it did for me was it made me become a better cook because I actually had to learn how to cook.
Are you still a vegetarian?
I'm pescatarian now.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
But it was for me. It was really about animal ethics and environmental reasons back then.
Yeah.
And that's still somewhat the foundation.
Yeah. Cool.
But started making beer. I went to college for forestry at Humboldt State and realized working for the government is not going to be fun. So I got out of there and kind of made my way around. I didn't know if I would get into Davis at that time. There were really the two schools for brewing, which is what I was kind of targeting, was Davis and the Siebel Institute in Chicago.
Right.
Well, wait a minute.
My friend went.
Wait, that's the first time I've ever heard someone say that. You were going to go to Davis to learn how to be a better beer maker?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
They had a whole brewing. Do you know Niall Zachary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was at Davis at the same time as I was.
But he was a winemaker too.
But he did the Master Brewer program.
Huh.
I mean, Davis and
Siebel Institute.
Yeah. I mean, so that would have been when did you go to Davis?
That was in the late 90s.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess that's kind of, I guess I'm kind of an asshole. I figured you figured out how to make beer on your own.
No, it's way harder than wine. Like when you get into the science of it,
because it's lower alcohol,
because you have such an ingredient spectrum that you have to take and
winemakers.
Process.
Some winemakers like to disc on brewers because they say, "Oh, you can do it whatever you want. You just pull out your recipe and buy your ingredients." But it's way more than that.
It's an art
and sanitation
to get something good out of it. Yeah.
And sanitation in beer is so much harder than in wine.
I don't know. I have a huge respect for it, and I think I learned a lot at Davis. I tried to do Master Brewers program and the wine program at the same time. I did not survive the Master Brewer program very well. And when you go to Davis at that point in time, when you went to Davis, they stuck you in the wine program. And if you wanted to do Master Brewers, you had to move over to it. And I stayed in the wine program. But I had, like, on my journey to Davis, it was at the time Gordon Biersch was really big, and he had learned German, gone over to Germany and worked in breweries and then came back. And so I had that in my head, and I was taking German at junior college.
Oh my God.
And I did a language exchange program over the summer to learn German better.
Yeah.
And they gave you three choices. So I chose brewery, then winery, and then agriculture. And I got stuck in a winery in the Pfalz in the summer, and I loved it. It was great. I got to do a little bit of everything. So awesome. When I arrived at the winery was 75% owned by the Japanese. They had shipped wine to Japan. The Japanese opened the container, looked at the label, decided they didn't like it. They shipped it back. And so my first 2 weeks at the winery in Germany were peeling labels. Like there were 5 of us just listening to German pop, peeling labels off a container of wine.
Falco, Vienna calling.
Yeah.
Love it.
But it helped my German a lot, just sitting there kind of conversing with, there was a East German kid, a German girl, a Japanese girl, and a British girl. And we would just hang out and talk. And the East German kid knew it was 4 years after the wall came down. Right. The East German kid thought I knew Michelle Pfeiffer and anybody from Hollywood because I was from California.
Right. That's awesome. So awesome.
So you guys had to peel all the labels off and then relabel?
Yep.
And then send it back?
Yep.
That's insane.
Doesn't make sense, but
yeah,
you do what you're told.
I know stuff like that actually happens all the time. Yeah. All right, so you're
in Germany.
In Germany, language exchange program, working at a winery, living on the wine street in the Pfalz. And that region, the wine glass is a 0.5 liter glass. So every region in Germany kind of has its own unique glass for their wines. The Rheingau's that pretty little stemmed one, goblet looking thing. But there was a French guy there too. The glass was a 0.5 liter glass, and the tradition in that area is half a glass of Riesling, half a glass of sparkling wine. You mix it and make like a wine spritzer.
Right.
But the French guy and I were stubborn and decided we would go to the wine festivals and just get a 0.5 liter glass of Riesling. And we did that, I think, twice, and then realized, yes, the sparkling and Riesling was a good idea. There's a reason they do this.
Exactly. They figured it out.
Time-honored traditions.
But we tried. We tried to stick to our guns. It just didn't work. So then I came back to California, got into Davis, met my wife there. She's the winemaker for Cade Winery, another Screw Cat brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I got out of Davis, you have to get your feet wet, and I wanted to travel and do it. So I went and worked in South Africa, went back to Germany, and then we went to Australia together, and we came back, and I was house sitting I used to house sit for Carol Meredith. Do you guys know Legier Meredith?
Yeah.
So I would house sit for her. So they wanted to take a vacation to Hawaii.
Obviously not long enough because they didn't leave the vineyard to you.
No, I left it to Aaron. I still have fond memories of that house, though. But we were house sitting for them. They were starting their brand, and they made their first vintage at Ballentine. And they said, "You need to go talk to them. They really need help." And so I went down, talked to Ballentine, and I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Because who was making the wines at Ballentine then at that point?
So the brand started with the father-son, with Van and Bill. They kind of parted ways early on. They just, like families operating wineries together, time and time again, they don't work out. So Bill stepped aside, started his own thing because he had a different plan. And they brought in Jim Moore from the Mondavi Group.
Yeah.
And he was there for 3 years, and then he left, and I took over in 2001-ish winemaking. I was assistant winemaker for him for a couple of years.
That, I love that you got to do your time in other countries. Something that's it's probably my only regret in the wine business is that I didn't take time to go work abroad, but I was just happy to have a job. The thought of quitting and going somewhere was like, what would I do? Well, how could I possibly come back and do something better than this?
It was the right time for me to do it. And if I would have stayed, I would have, gone into living life. And I just, at that point in my life, I didn't really care if I had money. It was just, my wife and I got sick of living out of backpacks. I think we did 5 harvests back to back.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. Yeah. When you took that job, you had just come off of doing like 5 harvests back to back. So you were just working 365.
Well, we would go work in a country for 5 months, save up a bunch of money, and then go travel for 3 weeks a month, and then come back to California. I have a funny story of my wife and I. It was in between Europe and Australia. We came back. We were staying at my parents' house, and to save up money for the next trip, we were working at Barnes and Noble, just stocking books. Back in 90,
how much did you get paid for
99.
that?
Well, the funny thing is my wife got paid more than I did. We got hired at the same time, and she got a higher rate than I did. We always laugh about it.
And do you know why?
Nope.
No.
Never brought it up.
Okay. Very progressive company.
Yeah, exactly.
They were forward thinking.
Right.
That's awesome.
Looked at him and said, "No, he's probably going to be slower.
Those books are going to be in the wrong area."
Yeah. And she'll be twice as fast too. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, all right. So the Chenin Blanc's delightful.
Yeah, it is. I love the mouthfeel on it.
Yeah.
It's great.
And can you talk a little bit about the winemaking on that, and then tell us a little about the rosé?
Yeah. So Chenin's been a fun project. Starting in 2002 to now, we've had a lot of vintages and a lot of time to make it, and we've only kind of played back and forth on a few different things, kind of different yeast selections and Really, the only other one is oak or no oak. And where we've settled after all those years is mostly stainless fermentation with a little bit of new Hungarian oak to the wine. And we just for texture, it's for a really short period in that oak. So we're harvesting in late August, early September, and it's bottled end of January, early February.
Yeah.
So it's got a couple months and with like 5 to 10% new oak, and the rest is stainless.
Yeah. Cool.
And just meant to be crisp, clean, bright.
Yeah. It checks all those boxes for sure.
And I think there's something about Chenin for me, having made Chenin and Sauvignon Blanc. It's very similar to Sauvignon Blanc in a way, but there's this underlayment of like sage, or there's a complexity to it that I think is really nice that I don't like. If you want something just fruit, Sauvignon Blanc's a great area to go.
Right.
But if you want some like layered qualities to it, Chenin's got some really nice nuances to it. And it's a little more, less citrus, more kind of apple pear. And
right. Yeah. 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 It's delicious. And how much is that retail?
35.
And how much is the sparkling retail?
The sparkling is 55. All that back and forth. It's an expensive process.
Yeah, no kidding. When someone talks you into doing sparkling wine, sometimes you have some regrets about 3 or 4 years in.
It was that first year we made it. It was a project that we didn't know all the processes, so we were kind of learning on the fly. And then like you have an expectation in your head, and you kind of have to taste this wine as it's progressing, and you don't know where that end point is.
Right.
Like with a wine, we can kind of taste a wine and see where it's going to be. But with sparkling, like we had a lot of debate about bubbles. Are the bubbles too big? Are there enough bubbles? Are there not enough bubbles?
Perlage.
And so we kept opening bottles, just kind of kicking ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? What are we doing? And like, how do we fix this? And by the time we're making decisions on this one, the next one's in the bottle already.
Right.
So we've already made decisions on the next one.
Or decisions were made for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're, it was an interesting learning process, a much debated wine in the winery.
Right.
I think I am off to do a tasting.
Be safe.
Yes, I will. Save me a little whatever else you're going to open. And that 2010 Chateauneuf is there if you guys want to try it.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Bruce. The wines are great.
Thanks, Brian. Good to see you
Hopefully
again.
I'll get to try more.
All right. Well, gosh. So that's a good run at one winery. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at Ballentine now, we're pulling out vineyards that I planted and replanting them.
Yeah.
Like that's a rare thing for a winemaker to be able to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I just was listening to a podcast, and I'm not going to remember who it was for now, but someone down in the Central Coast, and he was talking to the effect of how important it is that you work at one place for such a long time. And I think there used to be a lot more value in that. And now I think to some extent, people are looking for more experiences. And, we used to always joke about guys who just work harvests. It's like, well, do they understand about bottling and finishing wines?
Yeah.
But it's just a time and the experience you get seeing what other places do when you're young, and then you find a place, it makes it a lot easier to, identify what your values in winemaking are, right? Or your thoughts are in the winemaking process.
Well, and the other side to Ballentine that has helped with that perspective is that we do custom crush. We make wine for like 14 different people.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not the winemaker for all those brands. They have their own winemakers and their own ideals. And some of them come in and go, we want to do this. And you go, well, that's pretty damn stupid, but we're going to let you do it because that's what you really want to do.
Right.
And others you align with, and you get to see a lot of different things when you have multiple winemakers in your house making wines.
And going back to the thing of experience and being able to, we get to do it one time a year, and those decisions matter for years down the road. And having a bunch of custom crush in a place and being able to either learn something positive that you can claim to be yours from theirs, or learning something you're not going to do, it adds to your book of experience.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what it's all about in my mind is, every experience that you have when you're in the winemaking process.
Yeah. And you're always learning, right? It never ends.
No.
Like it's never the same thing. And especially it feels like from 2017 to now, it's just been a whirlwind of experiences and different environments. And, we've had fires, earthquakes, and extreme heat, and you have to adapt and try new things or make judgment calls.
Yeah.
It keeps it really interesting.
Yeah.
And everybody, like, you're not alone. My wife's a winemaker, and we have a network of friends that are winemakers, and you call and you network, you find out what other people are doing, and you pick up things on the fly as things are happening. So you make adjustments based on the information that's coming in.
Right. Awesome. All right. So rosé.
I'm going to ask you, what variety do you think it is of all the ones I mentioned?
Well, Zinfandel.
White Zen.
Yeah.
When I looked at doing rosé for Ballentine, and
I'll explain my reason. I didn't think it was the Petite Syrah because it's really light in color.
Yeah.
Mine's Petite Syrah, and I thought that was really light for what I got. And it has some of those characteristics I remember from the White Zinfandel days, done really well. So otherwise, I think sometimes when people tried to make White Zin, regardless of the sugar level, whatever it was, if it was ever picked too early, it became raisiny in a fruity style, right?
Yeah.
And this doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, no, like with the sparkling, for me, it was important to make rosé in a way that was going to make good rosé. And so we wanted to identify a varietal that was going to make a lighter style rosé with crisp acidity that we like. We thought about Cab Franc and all these other things, and then talked about what they would bring to the table, and it just wasn't the right kind of wine that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the team and said, we're doing White Zen. Like, it's the best thing we have to make rosé out of. We just have to...
And you guys want it.
We have to intentionally pick it for rosé and make it like a rosé.
Yeah.
We've all been at wineries where we've taken juice from reds to concentrate the reds and then made rosé out of them. And that was never the kind of wine that we do that at Ballentine. And that was never the kind of rosé I wanted to put in the bottle. It had to be a true rosé. It had to be true to our message.
And so do you have a block or areas of vineyards that you pick from, or do you do like a first pick, second pick?
I actually took our best Zen, and I'm like, this is like the best fruit character. So like, if we're going to do it, we're going to take this fruit. I only have 3 Zen blocks.
Right.
It's not like I have a lot to choose from, but like, we're going to take some of the best stuff, and this rosé has to be good.
Yeah.
If we're going to make White Zen, we better, we're going to throw it out there. We better make something good.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And I just got to, I went on a sales trip to Wyoming. I got to show it around a little bit there. Kind of my first time out on the road with the wine. And like, of all the wines we have, which I have a lot, that was probably the best received. It was like a good recognition. And everybody, like industry people, you go, it's White Zen, and wait for the reaction, and they all go, yeah, I actually kind of get it. It's cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably quite a bit of White Zen out there that people don't identify. Right.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's delightful. Again, like the times when I think about it, it was always the Saunier, like, oh, we're doing Zinfandel. Let's pull a little bit for White Zen or for rosé, right? And it has that. It's too far. The fruit profile is too tawny to raisiny to whatever.
Yeah.
So
This was direct to press, whole cluster.
yeah, it's delightful.
Thank you.
12% alcohol.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And a perfect color. Like, yeah. And you didn't even put Zinfandel, and good for you.
No, I wanted to, but my marketing people got a hold of it and said, yeah, you can't go that far.
Oh. Interesting.
I went, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah. All right. So what else is going on at Ballentine? Ballentine.
Well, we're probably the biggest thing up and coming is we're having a 120th anniversary party on May 4th.
Okay.
That's on our website, the details about it, but we're throwing a little party at the winery for
Why
the
don't
family.
you go ahead and shout out the all the contact information, the website, if you guys are, I'm pretty sure I saw you on social media.
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook. The winery website is ballentinevineyards.com. All our events are there. Our wine page, wine store is there. You can see all the wines we have out right now. There are more that are not on there that are hidden, but for the most part, that's everything you can get right now.
Okay.
And yeah, if anybody wants to come out for a good time, May 4th, the 120th anniversary party, we'll have live music, Napa Valley Bistro's cooking for us.
Nice.
And some other fun things going on, I think.
And how big a winery are you guys?
So we crush about 300 tons a year, if that gives
Okay.
you perspective.
Yeah.
We've crushed more than that. We've crushed less than that, depending on the given year. But
Right.
on average, it's about 300 tons.
Right. As it goes when you're a grower winery, right? You know,
Yeah.
when you're selling grapes, if you have extra fruit,
Yeah.
it comes to you unless there's a hot market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more coming this year.
Right. Yes. Yeah. As it goes.
Yeah. So, and then with custom crush, we're crushing about 150 to 200 tons a year.
Okay.
And the rest is Ballentine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice balance.
Yeah.
You know, the focus can, for the most part, the focus has to be all on Ballentine, but
Yeah.
not that many distractions.
No, it's, I've been a little bit of a gatekeeper in that, like we have a really healthy wine environment and we want good people there making wine. And so like we screen our custom crush people well. And if there's anything that kind of feels like it's not going to be a good fit, it's like, we can't take on that project.
And how many states are you distributed in?
We are in 10, 11 states now. A year ago, we were in 5.
Okay.
So that new wholesale person I brought on is opening up a bunch of states,
Yeah.
getting the wines out there and
Yeah.
having some good success.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want more success, but
Right. Well, now those people in those states, they'll think to come see you
yeah,
when they come to California.
that's part of the point is
Yeah.
to get them to come see us and
Right.
let them know we're out there because we've been farmers, production people. We have not been good promoters of ourselves,
Right.
good marketers. So we're really trying to step up our game in that world, whatever we can. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we have to compete to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah. And the competition's getting more and more interesting,
Yeah.
you know, and even if it's not competition, just the business is, you know, making it more and more, you have to be more and more focused.
Yeah.
I know that for myself.
Can we try some?
Yeah, absolutely.
Petite Sirah
Please
Rosé?
try it. Yeah. And then, so tell me, when did 3 Clicks start?
3 Clicks was started in 2006. My wife and I making Sauvignon Blanc and Petite Sirah, and we added a Grenache Blanc, I don't know when, and then a red Grenache down the road. Currently, I'm only making the red Grenache and off and on Sauvignon Blanc. We had a kid in 2016.
Okay.
And we both have busy day
Yeah,
jobs.
absolutely.
And it's like, I don't know if we can handle busy day jobs and our own label.
I'm, you know, I salute you, 2 winemakers, and you have a child. You like, you know,
Yeah.
the child wasn't born during the vintage, was it?
And I coach soccer during harvest.
You are a
I'm a
saint.
glutton for punishment. But we scaled back when we had our kid because we just, we had enough going on. So we're making a small amount of Grenache. The Grenache, I was buying Petits Ron Sauvignon Blanc from Jim Frediani up in Calistoga.
Yep.
Old grower, great old guy. And I knew he had dry farmed head trained Grenache. It's like a unicorn out there.
Right.
In the world. You don't find much of it. And I had bugged him for like 5 or 6 years. So who's the Grenache going to? Who's getting it? Can I get some? And he always had somebody he was selling to. And then one year he goes, those people last year didn't pay me for the fruit. Do you want some? And I went, yep. And so he sold it to me since. I think we started in 2016 and we're still making it today.
Awesome. Yeah. I look forward to trying it here. Yeah. And can you explain 3 Clicks?
3 Clicks is a reference to a humorist comedian who claims to be the first person to legally toast the end of the repeal of prohibition.
Okay.
By bribing the telegraph operator who sent out the message about the repeal for a 3-click advanced warning. So he could be the first person to legally toast.
Oh, okay. I like that. And how did you find that piece of history? We read a lot of wine history, a lot of food history. I really like reading food history. And we're just looking for something we didn't want to call a wine after ourselves. I just thought it was boring and wanted something fun. And we knew we wanted to bottle in screw cap, so we thought it was kind of a play on the screw cap. It's awesome. In this day and age, we've had quite a few people who are very new to the business on the show, and you ask them like, how did you get your name? And a lot of times they go, it was available. Yeah. And you've been around long enough that there was a lot of available. So I figured it had to be something,
I don't know,
specific.
I feel like we fought it for a long time. I mean, we wanted it to mean something, but there were the first name we had, which was a play on my wife's name backwards, we got a cease and desist on right away. And so
and what was that? I have to ask.
It was Torque, Torque, which my wife's last name is Thoreau. You spin it around and it's Torque. And it was a alcoholic energy beverage at the time. They don't exist anymore, but we called the guy and he's like, I was like, we're never going to be in the same market. Like, we're not going after the same people. Right. And he's like, if you want to pay to talk to my lawyers, you can. And I went, click, I'm done. Yeah. We'll find something else.
Yeah. That was one of the first clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we try it out?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got some Zen in there too.
Oh, well then as you care to.
Well, let's do Grenache next and then.
That's great. So what has been your lesson learned in winemaking with going from corks to screw caps? And do you feel like you have a good basis on it now, or do you find yourself still kind of adjusting every year?
No, I read a lot of the screw cap books at the time when we did it, and my wife's been doing screw cap for a long time. She oversaw a brand called Two Tone Farm, which I think was the first all screw cap Napa brand.
Yeah.
Under Treasury Wine Estates.
Okay.
Way back when. And so we had done a lot of research on it, and really it's about being clean in your winemaking. There is a danger of that reductive side of quality, because philosophically I do everything in a 10 screw cap hermetic seal. So I want it to seal and be the way it is when I put it to bottle. And so there's a risk of that reductive quality, but we really haven't had an issue, and we've opened some old bottles and they've been fine. That's about the only thing. And my wine style is, my New York distributor told me one time when I was working with her, she said, every time I go out and I talk about your wines, I say, this is the winemaker who wants the wines to taste like the grapes the day they're picked. Yeah. Like fresh, balanced. I'm not trying to overly manipulate or push things the wrong way. I want things to come to their natural state and really express where they come from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's delicious. It's absolutely varietally correct. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, we love that wine. We're horrible salespeople. We don't even put any effort into sales, but we make it for us because we want to drink it.
Right. And like how much fruit do you get? From the Grenache?
1 ton.
Yeah. So it's those very manageable amounts of wine to sell.
Yeah.
And
or trade. I traded a case for 3 bottles of some special wine the other day.
Okay.
Whatever you need to do.
Whatever's in play.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever's in play. That's great. Yeah, it has a real perfumey nose that kind of elevates out of it. Yeah, really pretty. And classic Grenache color. If there's any Syrah in that vineyard, it's not much with this color, right?
I'm really liking the texture on your Petit Syrah Rosé.
Thank you.
Did you have to find that at all, or was it?
No, you know what? It was just filtered, and then it just went through a screen. So we just did a cross flow on it.
Yeah.
And I've not done a lot of cross flowing in my day.
Oh, all these are cross flowed.
Yeah. I guess in my brain, I went back when the cross flows first came out, and was all this talk of heating the wine and beating up the wine and stuff. And then I never had to. When I worked for other wineries, we had other ways that we did it at the time. And but I'm real happy with how the wine turned out. It went through ML like almost immediately. So there was no stopping that.
Oh, that's where that creaminess is coming from. And that's
probably where that creaminess is coming
from.
We don't know in the winery where I work, where we make all this, none of us inoculate for ML. But it tends to happen pretty quickly.
There's a good strain.
There's a good strain. Yeah. On both the winery and for yeast and for ML. So if you want to arrest something, you got to really be on it. But thanks. I'm real happy with it. It tastes delicious ice cold. But it has this beautiful wine of beautiful richness to it when it warms up.
I don't know that I would pick Petit Syrah tasting it blind, but it has a nice fruit quality and it has a really nice texture to it. It's great.
It's been fun using it. It's some very nice people who bought a house that had a vineyard in it, and we've made rosé out of it 2 years of the 3 years because it was what the grapes were going to do the best at. The first year it had no attention. And then the third year, last year, it had a weird thing during vintage. And it wasn't necessarily ripening up real evenly. So we went for it and made another rosé. And this one's much more, much prettier than the first one, I would say. So anyway, thanks.
That's awesome.
All right. So Zinfandel.
Zin.
And were you a fan of Zinfandel's?
I was. When I was at Davis, my friends and I would drive right through Napa County and go up to Dry Creek and go wine tasting up there.
You would, huh?
Yeah, it was a little more affordable, but also it was Zen country. And
what were those Zins that you were going and tasting at that time?
Oh God, I have to think back. Meeker, we would go to a lot. God, that's a long time ago for me to rock the brain that far back.
Yeah, but Meeker, that's a good one. That's pulling out a good one.
Back when they were in the teepee.
Right, yeah.
There were a bunch of wineries up there we would go to. I couldn't.
The Petroncellis, we've had them on the show. Like, to me, those were some early wines of Zin that kind of struck with me.
Yeah. We would go to Ridge and...
Yep.
My first job in the industry was at Geyser Peak.
Okay.
I worked at Geyser Peak in 97.
So was that when Daryl Groom was the winemaker?
Yeah. Daryl Groom, Chris Russi.
Yeah.
Ondine.
Oh yeah, Ondine. She redhead. Yeah. Right.
She had just started that year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mick Schroeder was around.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good. It was a good group of people. It was a fun time.
I think it's actually more than 3 clicks.
Yeah, it is.
Screw cap, isn't it? All right. So this is estate fruit. How old are these vines?
They're not that old. So we had a lot of disease pressure in our vineyard. And when fourth generation came in, we actually took the stance that we wanted to kind of up our farming. And we went through and looked at our property and said, we've got just too many disease issues. We got to go through and replant. So, and in being in cab country, we actually got to sneak some Zin in and some other things. But being a small family-owned winery, we're allowed to play around a little bit, like Malvasia and Chenin. Right. The Chenin's not the old vines anymore either. It's young vines.
I mean, you almost said that like there were people that would have given you grief had they known you planted those varieties.
Well, it wasn't the economic choice, right?
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah.
We're putting Zin in. Zin gets 5,000 a ton, where Cab gets 10,000 a ton.
Right.
And the yields are the same.
Yeah.
The farming's the same.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
And is it 100% Zin, or did they a couple vines of this or that in there, or
no? So we blend. So I have RW Moore clones in. I have an old field clone selection block, and then I have Primitivo, and I don't remember what this specific blend is. But ever since those new plantings, we put some Malbec and Petit Verdot in, and those have become like our secret sauce that find their way into everything. So there may be some of one or the other of that in here. Petit Syrah usually is a good blender for us for Zin, the traditional Dry Creek recipe.
Right.
But really trying to keep it Zin.
Right.
So if it's blended, it's probably 90% Zin and 10% something else.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about it. You guys, I assume, grow some Cabernet.
We do.
And do a couple bottlings of that, or
so far too many. I have 4 or 5 different cabs right now.
Okay.
So I try and do single vineyards because the vineyards are super expressive on their own.
Right.
We have what we call the estate series, which the Zin falls under, which is like our wholesale entry level tier of wines that are all $40 to $60 that are meant to be utilitarian, get out there, super food friendly, easy drinking, bright fruit. And then we kind of step it up with those single vineyards, and then we do a reserve cab also. And the area where I think we really shine right now is Cab Franc. Like that growing area for Cab Franc, it just does really well. And we've put a lot of Cab Franc back in the ground with that.
Is Cab Franc having a moment right now? Do you think? I mean, it seems to me I've seen a lot more, whether it's social media or some podcasts or just some articles. Seems like it's kind of being talked about more than it has in a while.
So we've made Cab Franc since as long as I've worked at Ballentine, and we've taken it out in the market over the years. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, throughout the early 2000s, you would take Cab Franc out in the market. Like, it sells great at the winery when you can hand sell it, explain it, take it out in the market, and nobody got it. And about the last 5 to 10 years, you take it out in the market and it's working and selling. So I think there is something about it that's really working out there. And I don't know, maybe a lot of the greener Cab Francs that were kind of being made have gone away, and now things are fresher and more floral, and
maybe climate change.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to make it, sound like that, but it's definitely.
Well, I never thought you could grow Cab Franc in Carneros. Right. And then I tried Hudson's, and I'm like, oh shit, you can do Cab Franc and Carneros. Or at least their Cab Franc blend. Yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah.
It's great. But I was always like, we have the perfect land for Cab Franc because it's so freaking hot.
Right.
But there are other areas that are doing it and doing it well.
Right.
Ours tend to be alcoholic and violet and like just big and expressive, and those are prettier versions.
Right.
But there's a world for both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also delicious. Very Zinfandel.
So Zin's the one variety we've had planted from Prohibition to today, consistently.
And are there what are the oldest vines on the property?
I don't have anything old anymore.
Okay.
40 years at this point, the 90s.
Well, yeah.
We've replanted since fourth generation took over, we've replanted about 70% of our vineyard.
Okay.
Big investment into getting good fruit.
Yeah. Well,
that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. And, and there were definitely times where decisions on planting things, were not what they should have been. Maybe they were at the time, but I think over time you've discovered that there are things that shouldn't grow in certain areas.
No, it's been fun to kind of go through two iterations of planting on the same ground. And, Frank's dad was when I started working for him, was in his late 50s, early 60s. And he farmed for another 10, 15 years till he couldn't do it anymore. And he wasn't making the best decisions for the time. He was making the best decisions from his experience.
Right.
And, so it's been fun to go back through those vineyards and rethink how they should be done and kind of change some things. And that's one thing that's been great about Ballentine is we kind of go with the philosophy that we're not going to be stuck in our ways, and we're going to change things and experiment and try and figure out if there's a better way. And we'll make some mistakes along the way, and we'll just fix them. We'll learn from them and fix them and keep moving on.
Yeah. Is there, historically, before they were making wine, or even when they first started making wine, were there wineries that you sold to that maybe made wines from those vineyards that you've been able to have a historical look at, like what's happened on the property in the past?
Most of the historical production has gone into other blends.
Right.
So they've been big bulk things that have gone in and then gone out into other wines that you can't tell the heritage anymore.
Right. Like so much of the era, but I didn't know if maybe there was something there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, most of our current library goes back to 95.
Yeah.
But we do have some of the old bottles from the original winery. So the El Pokai and Sons winery.
Right.
And then John J. Ballentine winery. He bought the original Sutter Home property in Deer Park.
Right.
And the funny story about him is he, at the time, that was called Sanitarium because of the hospital there.
Right.
The area was known as Sanitarium, California.
Right.
And
was there a post office box? Was there a post office?
I think
there?
so.
Yeah.
I think so. And he hated having to put produced and bottled by Sanitarium, California on his label because you have to do that legally.
Yes, you do.
And so he's the one that got it changed to Deer Park because his family farm in Ireland was Deer Park.
Okay. That's a great piece of trivia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was a character, like all the old pictures you see of him, he's in a suit and a tie, and like the best I can tell, he was not in the vineyard production guy.
Right.
He was a sales guy out in San Francisco streets hawking wine.
Right.
And he, we recently found out he knew the Mondavis, and he's the one that, there's 2 books that reference it. He showed the Mondavis the Charles Krug property and convinced them to buy it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That goes back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
And then Frank's mom actually worked for Robert Mondavi at Charles Krug before he went off to start
the
Mondavi winery.
Okay. Yeah. That's some good history there. Cool. All right. Well, what else?
Well, we're making wine, getting out there. If anybody wants to come up and see us, we're pretty friendly and easygoing, laid back.
Open by appointment, walk-ins, days of the week.
We're by appointment. We're closed Tuesday, Wednesday right now.
Okay.
You can go online to our website and book an appointment easily.
Okay.
And we're pretty open.
Yeah. All right.
A couple different experiences, from trying those entry-level easygoing wines to something a little more serious.
Yep. So 3 Clicks, anything, any new releases coming up that you're excited about, or you still just, I know
still just drinking it myself.
Yeah. Okay. But shout out 3 Clicks, at least your website and whatnot.
Yeah. So it's 3clickswines.com. Haven't updated it in a while, but it's there if you want to check us out and see what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can shoot me an email. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Well, Bruce, thank you very much. Thanks for coming over. I take it they didn't check your ID as you came from Napa into Sonoma?
No, they didn't block me out.
Yeah, okay. I mean, usually we must be tagged because it happens to us. So it must just be us. But you guys check out Ballentine Vineyards in Calistoga?
St. Helena.
St. Helena. In St. Helena, that's right. It's just north of town. And if you have questions, go to the website, check them out on their Instagram and Facebook. Oh, you know what? We didn't try the Chateauneuf. I'll let you pour the Chateauneuf. We shouldn't let that go by. That's about it. Everybody have a great week. Subscribe, review, click, love your neighbors. Everybody have patience. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks. Bye.